Patrick Turner, Parkway Central, although when I went to Parkway there was only one in the class of 1964.
Is there a favorite memory from high school?
A lot of the memories that I have of high school is basically sports, of playing baseball all 4 years. That was a highlight of Parkway for me because I was a pretty decent athlete and of a school of 1,000 and be able to play baseball all 4 years and playing basketball too under Coach Limer, which was a pretty awesome thing too. He quite a history at Parkway. So I really enjoyed playing for Coach Limer.
How did your Parkway education impact your future?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I've traveled to many countries throughout the world, and St. Louis is one of those places. It's probably the only place in the world when you say, "Oh, St. Louis, where'd you go to high school?" And so I always ask that question, having grown up in St. Louis and now having come back after many years. So I still ask people, "Where'd you go to high school?" And they'll say, "Oh, wherever." And then "Well, where did you go?" And I said, "I went to Parkway." But when I went to Parkway again, there was only one, 1964. But when you say you went to Parkway in St. Louis area, that says a lot about who you are and the kind of education that you got and how it prepared you in life. So Parkway really did prepare me. I probably didn't see it at the time. You know, a lot of times you don't see it when you're in high school, but looking back on that and how the networking through the years of a Parkway graduate is pretty awesome.
Okay. What is your career now?
My career now, I spent, when I first got out of high school, I spent 20 years in land surveying and engineering. I was a land surveyor. And then in 1980, I had a career change where it was really a calling on my life of becoming a missionary. So my wife and I became missionaries for 20 years, 18 of those in Quito, Ecuador. And so I went into education, teaching at an international missionary school, and then coming back to the States in 2002, spent 6 years down in Texas as the upper school principal of the Woodlands Christian Academy, and then came back to the St. Louis area in 2009 and became the superintendent of the Christian school, Christian high school, Living Word Christian School in O'Fallon, Missouri, and stepped down 2 years ago and stayed on with the school because I still love what I do. The impact that Mr. Burr had on my life in education, still love what I do, so I stayed on as campus pastor of the school. I do a lot of counseling and do a lot of building kids up is what I do. And again, I had a great mentor in Mr. Burr, and so I still go in, turned 70 years old a couple months back, and I still go into school every day, still love what I do.
Talk a little bit about how did Mr. Burr change your life, or how did he influence you?
I often reflect on that, and some not too long ago, I stopped at the high school, which is, I think it's a middle school now maybe, where Parkway Central is. That was the original high school. When I walked in there in 1960-61, I can still remember I got outside and walked up the sidewalk, and I can still remember as though it was yesterday in January of 1961 when I walked up there with my dad and walked in the office, and the first person I met was Mr. Burr. Went into his office, and my dad told him that he could not afford to pay for my lunch. And at that time, lunch was probably like 35 cents, and Mr. Burr was just willing to take care of that and pay for my lunch, and that was the first impact that he had. I mean, to see 35 cents, it wasn't the amount, it was the generosity, the care that he had for one of his future students. And then getting to know Mr. Burr through the years and finding out he came from a very poor background too, we had a lot in common. We had a lot in common. That was a great turning point, I think.
Okay. You want to talk about any hobbies or life lessons?
Well, again, life lessons, I think it started there, but the life lessons was treating people the way you want to be treated, treating everybody the same, being honest, being fair, not being judgmental. All those positive traits, I think, was instilled in me during that time period. And I try to instill those in young people today.
And any funny moments or aha moments for you?
Back in high school or now? One of the funny things, I can't remember too many funny things happening in high school because, I mean, that was a long time ago. But all my students call me Mr. T. And so I've been Mr. T for 35 plus years. And I just spoke at a veterans chapel here a couple weeks ago at school. And I told a story about my students. They asked me a question. They come up and say, Mr. T, boxers or briefs? I paused for a moment. I said, depends. So anyway, I know that'll probably be cut out. But I have a lot of fun, and I think one of the things that that I tell my staff and my teachers through the years, it's be friendly, be fair, stay focused, have fun, be flexible. Sounds like that be firm and be flexible is contradictory, but in reality it isn't, because you got to know the situation. So I think that's a good credence to life. And another saying that a friend of mine told me one time is start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And that's a great philosophy, and I think that's helped me in my Christian walk with my students, with my peers. All those kinds of things has contributed to the way that I try to impact young people.